stuff that can actually do stuff. Yeah, see? Well, you're not concentrating, Joe. You didn't see that bit. Oh, well. Types of role. So, basically, if you want to do things, you basically run them on Server 2008 R2. You can have a web role, which is now full IIS. When I did labs, it was actually not full IIS. You could only, for example, have one website per role. You didn't have full access to any of the IIS configurations.
What is role?
So a role is effectively a computer, a deployment, an individual virtual machine that's doing something. So that virtual machine can be running a website using IIS. It can be effectively running an infinite loop. So a worker role is basically an infinite loop that never ends, a bit like a service. And you can actually have a VM role. So you can actually use it. You upload your own VHD, a virtual hard disk, and you're responsible for maintaining it, but you can actually run whatever you like on it. Yep.
So is this what you buy when you buy a compute?
Yes, this is what you buy when you buy a compute instance. So you buy a small instance, this is what you would run on it. You say, I want to have a small instance and it's going to run IIS. If your load gets too heavy, Microsoft are going to start shutting you down because you're impacting other people on the tenancy and you have to go to an increasingly sized instance.
But it's one-to-one.
Yeah, it's one-to-one roles and instances, yeah.
And the caveat being that any of these can be rebooted at any time with all Microsoft.
Yes, any of these can be yeah. So any of these can be rebooted at any time by Microsoft. So this is what I mean about you can have multiple. You have to have multiple roles, multiple instances of each role in order to maintain your uptime. If you only have one instance of one role, when it goes down for updating, you will be unavailable. Nothing will be happening.
Do they guarantee that they won't take down both your roles at the same time?
Yes, they do guarantee that they won't take down both your roles. So they'll guarantee, I can't remember what it is, I think it's only about 3 or 4 nines uptime, which isn't that bad really. The web role now, since so I did, like I said, I did labs in Azure 1.0. Azure is now 1.4. Now you actually have full IIS support. You can configure IIS in all its various fun and funky ways. You can have multiple sites, you can have multiple virtual directories. You can have your IIS extensions, you can use PHP, you can use CGI. All the features that you're used to in IIS, you can actually have as an Azure web role. So, yeah, if you want to run a website, you can, no problems. WCF services is something different. WCF services, you would put in a worker role. No, you don't have to. You don't have to put WCF in a worker role. But I don't know how you could have IIS run a WCF.
So worker roles can have endpoints?
Yes, worker roles can have endpoints. Worker roles can actually run websites. You can actually, say you want to run Tomcat, run it on a worker role. It doesn't matter. It's quite flexible, really. So basically, it forms everything in an infinite loop. So you override your role entry point, and that's where you start. You just go in and start doing stuff. So be that processing power, be that creating endpoints for services to connect to, and it allows any inbound TCP. I don't believe it allows any inbound UDP, but hey. Then you have admin mode. Admin mode is quite clever. So when you set up your roles, you can actually set up things to happen when your role is booted up. So you can actually install things on startup of your role. So that when your, say, worker role starts up, you can say, actually, I want it to install Tomcat and start running Tomcat in the background, please. You can install components, change registry keys, configure Windows Server, and these can be of different types. So they can either be simple background or foreground. So basically, it just means that, do I actually wait? Is this something that just happens in the background, like starting Tomcat, starting some database server, starting some service listener? Or is this something that I actually want to wait for an install to finish and then carry on? So when your machine drops down, There's nothing permanent about your roles. So that's one of the things to remember is you don't have any durable local storage. If you save something to your local disk, you will have no guarantee it will be there. This is because Microsoft can take down your machine, patch it, and reboot it, and all your changes have gone. So if you need to persist anything, you have to be very careful to use Microsoft-specific ways of persisting things that are particular to Azure. I'll go into those a little bit in storage. That all makes sense? When installing at runtime is just too complicated, that's when you move to a VM role. So say you want to do some very complicated startup task of, I don't know, installing Visual Studio, installing your whole build system in order to run a build farm. That's kind of when you'd go to a VHD and you just start up multiple build computers and let them all compete for work. What you run on a particular role, on a web role or a worker role, does have to be stateless. Well, you can have state. So the thing I'll go into is you can actually have stateful hard disks. So you can have something which is basically a storage disk, which is stored and basically mounted as a virtual hard disk onto your machine. That's where you can store stuff.
When you say that's stateful, that's not just initial state, like it writes that hard disk
And it will still be there. Yes. Yeah. That's all there is. So those are pretty much your only options for actually getting stuff done. There's nothing more on Azure that actually really processes anything. All we have now, really, is storage.